This is Alisha here, founder of Raw Dreams. We are a futurist education and skills consultancy working to enable and empower you and your dreams. Today we are going to discuss the most commonly debated topic about theory versus practical knowledge. So let's try understanding what each of these means. Number one, theory. Theory is about understanding the basic fundamentals of life, be it any subject which is important to survive, be it biology, chemistry, physics, geography, history, mathematics, English, and other subjects that are available in our education system. Let's look at practicals. Practical is about understanding how these different fundamentals of basics that we learn, how they blend in and how they interact. So today, if you are looking at using these two for our own benefit, how about blending them together? If you are going to the classrooms and learning the basic fundamentals of something, why not try and apply it right away in our lives? The first aspect or the base to practical knowledge is theory. So we always need to get our basic theories and fundamentals right. Then comes the practical aspect. Let's look at it this way. The knowledge that I have is what empowers me, enables me, or disables me. With that knowledge, the way I blend it or let these fundamentals interact is what will determine my success. So success is very dynamic for everyone. Today, if you look at the basic certifications and theory provided, we all are on the same level. But why do we still have different levels of success then? It is all determined by our practical knowledge or experiential learning. It is about how we determine the basics of this knowledge for our own usage. Look at it in any way. For example, let us look at English, a language which is now globally becoming one of the most common languages spoken. What does English do? Look at the basics. You have the alphabets, you have phonetics, you have your basic noun, pronoun, parts of speech, and all those things. Once you know your basics of the language right, you can say anything. Today, if you look at all the successful people, what do they have in common? Do they have the basic education in common? Do they have the basic struggle in common? What does that struggle encompass? It encompasses practical knowledge. So while today you're going back into your classrooms or you're learning controlled atmospheres, you need to understand the basics right. Once you have your basics, you can blend it into anything. The practical knowledge is about how these fundamentals are used by me for my own success. And that is what makes it or breaks it. Our classrooms are very certain. There are teachers who control the environment and monitor it. But when you come out to the practical world, there's nobody monitoring anything. And that is what the transformation takes. So while you're looking at blending in all the theory that you have learned to apply it in your real, uncertain, constantly changing lives, think about it like this. We all have one unique potential. We all are actually gifted or born to do something. Now, if you're able to identify that and blend in your theory and experience and practical knowledge, that is rawness, and that is what makes Raw Dreams aspirants successful. So while you go back and work on your own individual talents and blend it for your theory and practical experience to become successful.
Thank you so much.
So my question is, which education according to you is more important, practical education or theoretical education, and how do you consider so?
In this case, I am in the middle. We can say that the practical education is bad or theoretical education is bad. Theoretical education teaches us, gives us knowledge, whereas the practical education gives us skill. And altogether, knowledge and skills, it becomes education. We can say that the mm, we can say that the theoretical knowledge it's of no use because it only teaches us bookish knowledge. May I tell you that if no concept, if there is no concept, then we can't go in field or do anything.
And you are saying that you support both. Means you are saying that both are equally important.
I find practical education more interesting and easy than theoretical education. It is because practical knowledge leads to a much deeper understanding of a concept through the act of doing it by the personal experience. It is found to be more useful in our actual day-to-day work. As well as it helps in the significant improvement in students' understanding abilities through practical applications and situation, as well as it helps in the balance of IQ and EQ in achieving personal success. Thank you.
To be specified and to tell which education is more important, I feel both education is important. So first of all, let me give you an example. If you have a car and you have every knowledge about every part of the car, but if you are not practically using that car, the value of the car for you is totally zero. You cannot use it. But if you have car, you know you have the practical education to drive it, but you don't know what are the measures to control it, or let's say what happens if you fall into accident, then how can your just practical education be specific and help you? So what I feel and think is practical education as well as theoretical education is both important for us to make a blend. Thank you.
In my view, practical knowledge has the more importance than theoretical knowledge because in theory we remember in minds, but some people can't remember the words that they read. And if they practice by practically, then they can remember the things.
Needs various kinds of resources, and by using those resources we can gain practical knowledge. Just like we learn about measurement in science, and science has many kinds of instruments which we need, and by reading we can only gain theoretical, and by using those instruments we can gain practical knowledge.
We have been talking about practical knowledge is more kind of expensive than theoretical knowledge. Then what about those students in remote areas where they cannot afford practical knowledge? Can theoretical knowledge can equally give education, that education that we gain from practical knowledge?
What I feel about the students who are learning in rural areas is theoretical education can also provide them the equal chances to have the better knowledge. To clarify my point, I would like to say that if the students in rural areas are taught about the agricultural sites, they are more physically involved in that. Because we see students in village area are morely specified, or let's say they work more in fields. So I think theoretical education can also provide an equal opportunity for those students to learn education. Thank you.
If you think that practical educations can be cheap, that can be feasible to all people, so what are the steps that we can make it cheap?
The first point what I feel is the government of Nepal should also be active in the field. If they provide certain types of, now again I would like to give an example of agriculture. If people in rural areas cannot afford the expensive materials, the government of Nepal should also be responsible, or let's say they should also be cooperative with them to buy those equipments. The other point can be the involvement of more than 2 or 3 people to buy a particular let's say equipment. If anyone is practicing doctor, then he may collect 2 or 3 people and buy the equipments that he need, like stethoscope or blood pressure device or anything else. So for me the 2 points are collection, or let's say unity of people, and the responsibility of Nepal government.
For the accessibility of practical education for the people in rural areas, the Nepal government should give its full support, and not only depending on government, we people or any institution in urban areas, like there are many schools like St. Xavier's, James, and even our Mount Willis boarding school. They can also collect various resources, tools, equipments they are needed for the practical education, and they can be supplied to the rural areas. And we can also hire many experts so that they can also guide them for their practical education. Thank you.
So what policy can you bring really to implement practical educations for all level, from pre-primary to higher secondary level. If you were an education minister, so what sort of policies you give to the sector of education so that they can emphasize more on practical teaching, practical one?
The government can give some policies like dividing the skilled teacher in remote areas so that practical education can be taught, and even providing income to those remote areas to buy some resources for practical education. Thank you.
School will, if I were the education minister, I would provide the school with the required resources. For example, if we are learning about fertilizers, I would provide them the fertilizers, and they can feel them, touch them, and even use them. And places can be made for running. And I could make some places where we could implement those stuffs, and we could use some qualified teachers for it.
Then I would use the following policies, implement the following policies. First thing first, I would utilize all the international donations which come to Nepal in the name of the education. And secondly, I would run programs to conduct trainings, to give trainings to the teachers. And lastly, I would make a policy to have a practical lab in every school or college.
I would first give the training to every teachers for giving emphasis on the practical education, and even change the exam system of our government by turning them into entirely practical education. For example, nowadays we give the exams on a written paper in an answer sheet, but I would change the system and try to give emphasis on the practical education by making them do various kinds of science experiments and vocational experiments.
So, then you stress, what do you expect from your school or teachers so that you can also learn practically? Please, Praveen.
Our school can also take us for field visit, and similarly we learn many things in our social studies about the social works and how should we carry on and how can we serve our society. So social works can be implemented in our society well with full support from the school side. The teachers, the principal of the school and many other staffs in the school can also support us. Similarly, we also learn about various science experiments, about many things in chemistry, biology and many more. And we can conduct science experiments so that we can learn more about the idea and about how we can conduct the experiment. And for that, we can also bring various resources, tools, equipments and the various apparatus that are needed for conducting science experiments in school. Thank you.
I expect that our teachers teach us practically rather than teaching theoretically. While teaching practically in the form of educational trips, field visits and experiments, the knowledge that we gain from the learning process can be in our mind for a long time, and we can get better knowledge of the things by practical education.
Thank you so much.
In our science subject, teachers used to tell about the various experiments, but they didn't take us to the science lab to show that how to do that experiment, and they can take to the science lab and do the same experiments so that we can understand it very properly. And in social subject, we learn about how to do the social works, but we didn't actually apply the social works that we just read, but we can apply the social works in our society so that we will have a good personality too.
How are you able to blend theoretical education and practical education?
How can we do link practical education with the help of theoretical education?
I would like to give an example of science class. In science, we learn about the molecular formulas of any particular element, and if our teachers If our teacher make us to write the molecular formula as well as teach us practically how those molecular formulas are formed, we can make a blend of theoretical education as well as practical education. To give more example of a car, if we have the knowledge of the what to do during an accident, after an accident, or what may be the parts that are used during driving in car, and as well as if you practice how to drive a car and experimentally verify that, then you can make a blend of practical education and theoretical education, I believe. Thank you.
Example, by playing a number game, by accessing the audience to please stand up.
Yes, please. Yes.
Anyone, then for the cost fee of to the Koteswar is 15 rupees, and then to the Tinkune is more 15 rupees than the previous cost. Then how much will you pay for when you go from Balkot to Tinkune?
30 rupees.
Yeah, but yes, 30 rupees, right? Then how did you learn that? You have got basic knowledge of the rupees, that the 15 plus 15 becomes 30, and it becomes practicality when you travel through those distance and pay to the conductor, right? So we can blend these two theoretical education and practical education by use.
We all know that our bone is the supporter of body. If there were no any bones in our body, we couldn't stand, we couldn't move, and we couldn't walk. And we can link practical education and theoretical knowledge with both bones and our skin, outer parts. Like theoretical knowledge can be our bones and practical knowledge can be our skin. And inside practical knowledge we can find theoretical knowledge hiding. It means that theoretical knowledge is the base for our body. It supports practical knowledge. In this way, theoretical knowledge have very good connection and link with practical knowledge. Thank you.
Recently in science we learn about chemical fertilizer, and we came to know the procedures of how to use that. From the book we get the knowledge to use this much of fertilizer, that much of fertilizer, but we don't know the exact amount of using that. So if we go to the field or to any agricultural sites, then we can know that how much exact quantity we should use, how should we mix it with others nutrients, and put it into the fields like that, so we can get the exact practical knowledge.
Thank you so much. So we are almost near to the end of panel discussion. That means we are going ahead in the third round, that is conclusion round. So before that, let us give chance to audience with the question, please.
I'm being specific now, and my question is to Mr. Praveen, that is it possible to take practical examination, and if yes, how, and if no, why?
I can give a suitable example that in our school also we learn various science experiments and we give theoretical exam in our school, but it can be also done in a practical way, that we can go to science lab, we can prepare our apparatus ourselves, and we can use the chemicals and all the methods to complete the experiment, and in this way we can learn and do it practical, and we can have exams practically in that way, and our teachers can judge about how we did that experiment and what the result came and how was our effort for the experiment. In this way we can be examined.
But what about except science? What about social studies, mathematics, optional maths, and not what about all those extra subjects except science?
Not only theoretical examination can be given. Our social teacher can also give assignment or project, that how we serve our society, what we have done for our society, and he can fix a date up to which we have to submit the job of what we did practically.
And which education do you think comes first? That is theoretical education or practical education? And how do you prove so?
Theoretical knowledge is important because first we can learn the theoretical knowledge, then only we can practice, so that we can learn that practical knowledge as we have learned in that theoretical.
As he declared that practical education will increase communication skill and international skill. Can you give an example, and can you prove that it will really increase communication skill and international skill?
Through practical education we can increase our community skill. It is true, because when we, they can take an example, if we do project on social studies. Then it can be somehow helping or cleaning the society, and we can have interaction between the people living the society. We can be more specific to the person we know, and our communication skill grows. Thank you.
What about interaction skill?
Interaction skill also, we can also increase it by if we interact with the person of the same living society for the cleanliness program, then our interaction can be grown.
They told that practical education they give more importance. Like more often Karuna told us, practical education is more important than why do you rely on books?
It's not that every time we only read or mug up the books, we also look out to the world that what is recently happening or what's the environment. By that we can even get the practical knowledge. So it's not only about reading the books or mugging up the books.
As students, from your side, what do you do or what kind of habit do you follow so that you can learn the new things in the practical way? So do you get any ideas that I can do this or I will do this so that I can learn this topic, or I learn this this matter, or I can learn this subject by doing this?
First of all, I will implement the things that I have learned from the books. I will do the things experimentally, like project works and experiments, and the things I have learned in the school, I implement them in the field subject by subject wise, and we try to learn new things from the practical education.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.
If we are going to build a new house, then from the theoretical knowledge, or we can say practical knowledge of mathematics, we can know how much bricks will be required to construct a particular area and we can get to know how much length and how much total area is specified. Thank you.
I continuously learned the account, and I started to understand how to minimize the budget and how to identify my expenses and income. So I started to use account in my daily life in order to maintain my pocket money. And even going through the science, when learning about magnetism and electricity, the first thing I learned about the properties of magnet was it attracts the magnetic substance, and it shows north and south pole when suspended. So I went in my home and tried with a magnet and tried with various substances whether it is magnetic or non-magnetic, and I even suspended the magnet in order to show what is wrong in it.
In TQP, we have learned many things. Sir have given us to make slides about about the things we have done, just like social works, and from that also I learned and I did some social works and so in slides.
Thank you so much. So finally, dear panelists, you know the actual difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is true asset. So what information do you get and put in your subconscious mind, that is knowledge. But what do we have in our mind as knowledge when we put that in our real life, that is wisdom. So practical education is wisdom. This is wisdom. So what conclusion we can give by today's panel discussion is, so really to develop a country, okay, to produce that is smart people or the skilled manpower. So from every part of the country, okay, they should give more priority to teach very small, young, to the old people in a practical way. So practical knowledge and theoretical knowledge should be blended to each other.
From my side, I want to say that both practical and theoretical knowledge are important, as we can consider theoretical knowledge as our bone and practical knowledge our body without bones. Theoretical knowledge is the base for our practical knowledge, but specifically I want to prioritize practical education as the best because of famous fighter we all know Bruce Lee. He also said that knowing is not enough, we must apply it. Similarly, the main aim of knowledge is not the main aim of education is not knowledge, but to apply it in our action. Thank you.
As the saying goes, practice makes perfect, and incorporating practical skills into our study has proven to help us to learn and gain a better understanding of the workforce, and even gain employment, get better skills, better learn about the career we want, and to gain the career we want. As we learn to do something by doing it, there is no other way. So from my side, I think practical knowledge has a vast importance in students' life.
Thank you so much for being my friend. See you next time. Thank you so much.